The world is holding its breath as two powerful countries in the Middle East, Iran and Israel, move closer to a possible war. As of today, June 16, 2025, the situation is extremely tense. Leaders from both nations have been using strong words, warning each other of serious consequences. News reports suggest that Israel might be getting ready for a military strike against Iran, perhaps as soon as this month. This is not a new fight. It is a long and complicated conflict that has been simmering for many years. But now, it feels like the heat has been turned up, and the risk of a major war is higher than it has been in a long time, worrying people across the globe. The immediate danger revolves around Iran's nuclear program. Israel has said many times that it will never allow Iran to build a nuclear bomb. Recently, international inspectors found that Iran is getting very close to having the material needed for such a weapon. In response, Israeli officials have stated that they are prepared to take action to stop this from happening, even if it means attacking Iran directly. This has put the entire region on high alert. The United States and other world powers are watching closely, trying to find a way to cool things down before the first missile is launched and a dangerous new chapter of conflict begins. Adding to the tension, there have already been direct clashes between the two countries. Since the war in Gaza began back in late 2023, Iran and Israel have exchanged attacks, firing missiles and drones at each other. This was a major change as they used to fight more indirectly through other groups in the region. Now, the fight is out in the open. Iran says its military is at its highest level of readiness and has warned that any country that attacks it will face a powerful and surprising response. This creates a very dangerous cycle where each side feels it must show strength, making a peaceful solution harder to find. The people living in both Iran and Israel, as well as in neighboring countries, are caught in the middle of this escalating crisis. The constant threat of war affects daily life, creating fear and uncertainty about the future. Embassies in the region are taking precautions, with some countries even evacuating staff and their families. This shows just how serious the situation has become. Everyone is waiting and watching, hoping that leaders can find a path away from war. The decisions made in the next few days and weeks could have a massive impact on millions of people and the stability of the entire world. To understand why things are so bad now, we have to look back at past events. A key moment was in 2018, when the United States, under then-President Donald Trump, pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. This deal, signed in 2015, was an agreement where Iran promised to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for other countries lifting punishing economic sanctions. When the United States left the deal and put sanctions back on Iran, the agreement fell apart. Iran felt it was no longer bound by its promises and slowly began to ramp up its nuclear program again, moving closer and closer to the ability to make a nuclear weapon. Israel's main reason for considering an attack is its deep-seated fear of a nuclear-armed Iran. Israeli leaders see Iran as a major threat to their country's existence. They point to statements from Iranian leaders who have called for Israel to be destroyed. From Israel's point of view, an Iran with nuclear bombs is a nightmare that cannot be allowed to happen. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been very clear, stating that Iran's government supports terrorist groups and that giving them the ultimate weapon would be a danger to the entire world. This is why Israel says it must act, even if it has to act alone, to protect itself from what it sees as an existential threat. On the other side, Iran gives its own reasons for its actions. The Iranian government says its nuclear program is only for peaceful purposes, like generating electricity, and not for making bombs. They see the pressure from Israel and the United States as unfair and as an attempt to bully their country. Iran feels surrounded by enemies and believes that a strong military and its nuclear program are necessary for self-defense. After the United States reimposed heavy sanctions that have badly hurt its economy, Iran's leaders argue they have no choice but to push back and show that they will not be intimidated or forced to surrender their national rights. The Gaza war that started in October 2023 has also poured fuel on the fire. During this conflict, groups supported by Iran, like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, have attacked Israel. This has led to direct military exchanges between Iran and Israel for the first time. Israel sees this as proof that Iran is trying to weaken it by using other groups as proxies. For Iran, supporting these groups is part of its strategy to fight back against Israel and its main ally, the United States. These recent clashes have made the long-running shadow war between them erupt into the open, making the current situation far more volatile and unpredictable. The United States plays a very important role in this crisis. As Israel's closest and most powerful ally, what America does or does not do matters a great deal. President Donald Trump, now in his second term, has said he would prefer a peaceful agreement, but has also warned of a massive conflict. The United States has made it clear to Israel that it will not join in on any offensive attack against Iran. However, it has also suggested it might provide support, like intelligence and defense, if Iran strikes back at Israel. This puts the United States in a difficult position, trying to prevent a war while still supporting its ally, and its actions are being watched by everyone. Other countries around the world are also very worried. European nations, along with Britain, have been trying to save the nuclear deal and get Iran and the United States to talk. They fear that a war would create a huge refugee crisis, disrupt oil supplies, and make the world a much more dangerous place. Britain has recently issued warnings about threats to ships in the Middle East, a sign that the conflict could easily spread and impact global trade. These countries are urging both Iran and Israel to step back from the brink and are pushing for diplomacy as the only real way to solve the problem before it's too late. The United Nations, the world's main body for keeping peace, is also heavily involved. The UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, officially declared just a few days ago, on June 12, 2025, that Iran was not meeting its non-proliferation obligations. This is a very serious step that could lead to the issue being sent to the UN Security Council, which has the power to impose even tougher international sanctions. Iran rejected this decision, saying it was a political move by Western countries. This disagreement shows how hard it is for international organizations to solve the problem when the two sides do not trust each other. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts are happening behind the scenes. Another round of talks between the United States and Iran is scheduled to happen soon in the country of Oman. These talks are a small sign of hope, a chance for both sides to communicate and possibly find a way out of the crisis without resorting to war. However, with military tensions so high, the time for talking is running out. The international community is caught between supporting these diplomatic efforts and preparing for the worst-case scenario. The pressure is on for negotiators to find a breakthrough before military leaders feel they have no other options left. Looking ahead, there are a few ways this crisis could unfold, and most of them are dangerous. One possibility is that Israel decides to carry out a limited military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Even if the United States does not join in, Israel could still act alone. However, experts believe that without a certain type of American bomb, Israel may not be able to destroy Iran's most protected underground sites. This could lead to a situation where Iran's program is only damaged, not destroyed, and Iran would almost certainly retaliate with its own powerful missile attacks, starting a wider and more destructive war across the region. Another path is that the threats and military buildup continue, but no one fires the first shot. This would create a long, intense standoff, a Cold War in the Middle East. While this is better than an all-out war, it would still have terrible consequences. The constant fear and uncertainty would harm economies, scare away investment, and make life very difficult for ordinary people. It would also mean that the risk of a mistake or miscalculation leading to an accidental war would remain very high. A single wrong move by either side could trigger a conflict that nobody initially wanted, but nobody could stop once it began. The best but perhaps most difficult outcome is a diplomatic breakthrough. If the upcoming talks between the United States and Iran succeed, it could lead to a new agreement. This would likely involve Iran accepting strict limits on its nuclear program again, in exchange for the United States and other countries lifting sanctions. This would require a great deal of trust and compromise from all sides, something that is in very short supply right now. A successful deal would be a huge victory for peace and would pull the region back from the edge of disaster. But getting there will be an uphill battle. Ultimately, the importance of finding a peaceful solution cannot be overstated. A war between Iran and Israel would be a catastrophe, not just for them, but for the entire world. It would lead to countless deaths, destroy cities, and send shockwaves through the global economy by disrupting oil supplies. It could draw in other countries, including the United States, Russia, and China, creating a much larger and more dangerous global conflict. For the sake of the millions of people who just want to live their lives in peace and safety, it is critical that leaders choose dialogue over destruction and find a way to step back from the cliff.